I'm Tass Mellis of The Starters.
This is Ben Golliver with the Open Floor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ludlow from NBA Inside Stuff.
I'm OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, I'm Elena Donon, and welcome to the Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Double Clutch Podcast in 2021. Wow, what an introduction. That was pretty epic. Thank you, Kirk. That was a great way to kick off the year. I'm one of your usual hosts, Mike Miller, and tonight, as pretty much usual, I'm joined by Mr. Tom Hall. How's it going, man?
Good evening. Just to echo what you just said, Kirk, we don't have any money, but if we did have it, that's why you're doing the big bucks for stuff like that. Just phenomenal introduction, completely voluntary. So credit to you, and hopefully the conversation will match. Although we might struggle to match that quality, but we'll do our best to talk some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's max contract entrance. That is to anyone who's listening back on this, you should come and check out this Twitch stream, probably be on YouTube by the time you get to it. Twitch.tv/doubleclutch UK. Kirk has surprised us with this new intro. There appear to be people running around all over the court. I have no idea what they are, but this is incredible. Anyway, we shall get into it. We've got to talk basketball. Obviously, there's a heck of a lot that's gone on in the NBA this week. Thank you to Kirk for producing the show. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere at Double Clutch UK. There's a Discord community you can get involved with. The server is discord.me/doubleclutch. And as I said, if you're listening to this in a audio only format, then more fool you, because twitch.tv/doubleclutch UK is where all the cool kids are at, apparently. So let's jump into some basketball. Firstly, there was some sad news. I hate it. I've led 2 weeks now with sad news, but we have to pay homage. Paul Westphal, the former head coach of the Phoenix Suns, died on the 2nd of January following a battle with brain cancer. He was a Hall of Famer in his own right, 5-time All-Star, 3-time first team All-NBA, one-time second team All-NBA. He won a chip with your Celtics. He took the Suns to the finals as a player, or rather was a player on the Suns' first time they made the finals, and led them as a coach to the finals. He drew up one of the most fantastic plays ever, where Oliver Miller threw the ball off the backboard, and it was a fake alley-oop play. So Cedric Ceballos jumped as if he was going to dunk it, but it was too high for him, and it goes off the backboard, so everyone stops. And the clock doesn't start till someone touches it, and Charles Barkley was there just to scoop it up and hit a circus shot. And it's one of the most phenomenal plays in NBA history. He also gave one of the greatest sound bites ever, in my opinion, when he was asked in the 1993 finals, what are you going to do to stop Jordan? And he just went on this. It was only about 30 seconds, but it was just this pale-faced, sweating man just going, "You can't stop Michael. No one said you could stop Michael. How do you?" And it's just one of the greatest little sound bites in my head. So rest in peace to him, a phenomenal coach. Will be sorely missed by the NBA community. In other news, well, COVID. I guess we're now locked down, so we might. So for anyone who's not in the UK, we've just been locked down in what is now our third lockdown bit. I was not watching the news press conference because I was too busy doing stuff like this, trying to get this ready. So I don't really know what's happened. But you guys who are out there listening and watching are more important, apparently, than me watching the national news. It's unbelievable, but it's the right thing to do. But the NBA has had 0 positive COVID tests returned out of 495 players who had tested as of the 24th of December. They report, since the 24th of December. So that's really good. That's a positive sign. There are obviously players who are not playing at the minute because they're, through contact tracing, have come into contact with people who have it. One of the stories that got me, I don't know if you saw this one, but several members of the Clippers support staff per Woj, this is a quarantined they were in Salt Lake City after there was a positive coronavirus test. Basically, the contact tracing led back to 8 people attending a New Year's Eve meal at a presidential suite in the team hotel with intermittent mask wearing. I love that phrasing, intermittent mask wearing. No players, no coaches, no team management, but they were quarantined. And then to get back to LA, this bit I love. They rented Sprinter vans, so like they're like the Ford Transits.
Yeah,
they all bunged into transit vans to go from Utah back to LA. Did you see that story? Did you have any thoughts on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Lue commented on it and said that he's almost very thankful that it was, well, obviously thankful that it was none of the players and none of the actual coaching staff. It just seemed to be support guys. I don't think they released the names of exactly who it was, but just the fact that it seemed to be from a New Year's Eve kind of get together in whatever fashion you're allowed to do that in the States. I don't really know how the rules differ from here, but it sounds like doing something they shouldn't have been. Whether there'll be any reprimands from the NBA or not, or from the Clippers themselves, I'm not sure. I don't know if we'll end up hearing about that anyway, with them not being high-profile guys. But fortunate for the Clippers that it was no one high-profile like a player or a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, great news that it's not a player or a coach, although it's great news when anyone is not COVID positive. But yeah, I hope it just seems a ridiculous position to be in, where they know the severity of the situation. They still chose to have a group meeting. But anyway, let's just push that to one side, because we're burying the lead again, as we tend to do here. Just before we went on air, about 8:30 UK time, they announced the NBA Players of the Week for Week 2, and they were, drum roll, he says. You not got a drum roll, Kirk? You normally have everything. But he's going to try and find one now. It's going to go really weird. They were Steph Curry out the West. Not a huge surprise considering last night, and we'll get to that in a minute, who averaged for the week 39.7 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, leading the Golden State Warriors to a 2-1 record. And from the East was the consensus most or worst player earning 30 million or more last week was Tobias Harris, who averaged 23.3 points per game, 9.7 rebounds on 57.1% field goal shooting percentage, and led. He was part of the Sixers team that went 3-0 last week. So Curry, not a surprise there. Tobias, a bit more of a one. Do you think that's a fair thing for Tobias to have got this week?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very solid. It was a weird one because they dropped like half an hour ago before we started recording, and Steph, like we say, was the really obvious one. Went nuts last night with his career high. We're going to talk about him in a sec. But Tobias, I had to Google all of his box scores and kind of look into why he was Player of the Week, because I know he's been decent, but I didn't know that he was the best of a whole conference. So I think it's just that he's being consistent, and if anything, he's not like blowing anyone out of the water, but he's doing what he should do on a 32 million salary. And he's being the third best guy on that team, probably second best player over the past week. But I think we said it last week as well. If Shake Milton is their third best player, they're going to struggle. But when Tobias Harris steps up, as he has done the past week, that's when you're now seeing the Sixers with one of the best records, if not the best record in the NBA at the moment, and looking like one of the better teams. So if he can keep it up, great signs for them and for Doc Rivers, who's coached them before. It's just keeping that consistency, because he's a bit like Paul George in the way that he can go off and score 30 occasionally, and then he can score 10 just as easily the next night.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we might touch on the Sixers a bit later on as well. So let's move on then to Chef Curry himself, who went nuclear last night. 62 points for a new career high, having previously dropped 54. And that was 2013. I can't believe it was that long ago, on the Knicks in MSG. We took a bit of slack in the Discord. I don't know if you spotted that. Someone was chuckling about our comments last week about Steph Curry with this happening now. And I went back and listened to it, and I don't think we said anything that was too out of line, actually. I think it was quite a measured response that, he is worth the money. He has a great skill set. We just wanted to see something a little bit different from him. And we certainly got that. 62 points, second oldest to score 60 behind Kobe, who scored 60 in his final game, age 37. What were your takeaways from this performance from a two-time MVP, a unanimous MVP, and a guy who's kind of been out on his own at the minute in Golden State?
Yeah, I mean, unreal, obviously. Like, one of the most incredible shooting performances we've seen for a while. And just something that I've been reading today from Kevin O'Connor. He'd averaged, per 36 minutes before this game, 31 touches in the front court, and he took 31 shots yesterday. And it kind of shows just what the Warriors have to do to win. We were talking last week a lot, and I mean, everyone's been talking about just how bad the rest of that roster has looked, whether it's Wiggins or Wiseman's even. He was all right to start the season. He's not been as good since. And then Oubre has now increased his shooting from 3 from 4% to 7%, which is just absolutely unbelievable. And Draymond's back, which is good for them. But still, it shows that if they've got any chance of making the playoffs this year, then they're just going to have to ride off the back of Steph Curry doing stuff like this. Maybe not 60 points every night, but you would think at least 30 if they're going to stand a chance of winning.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I was trying to get to last week. It's not that I expect him to put up this sort of numbers or average 50 or whatever, because that's ridiculous. He's not Wilt Chamberlain. This isn't 1960. There's not 7 teams. He's not playing against 6'4" white dudes when he's 7'2". This is, and that's no disrespect to Wilt Chamberlain as well. Go and check out his YouTube videos. He's just insane. But I wanted to see more from him in terms of being aggressive, and he certainly, he came off absolutely on fire last night. He started the game hot. The Blazers have always struggled against the Warriors. I don't think CJ, or it's no news at all that CJ and CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard are not the best defenders. They also don't have the length of longer wingspan guys who normally you get in the league. Obviously, Steph, I'm falling over my words today completely. But Steph, I guess what I'm trying to say is CJ and Dame are undersized point guards. There's a ceiling for that. They don't have the length necessary to disrupt Steph's sight line in the way that longer defenders do. So he usually has success against the Blazers. That's a little bit simplistic. I get that because, they have got guys like Robert Covington, who is a lot longer, but, Rocco struggled to stay in front of Steph. Some of the way they're obviously driving him off the 3-point line, but the way he comes in and changes pace and direction and sort of weaves and snakes into the paint was just fantastic. Do you think maybe it was, he's saying, he's drawing on the Jordan, I took it personal with all the snubs and that. Was this the perfect team to have this kind of performance against? Yeah,
definitely. And the Blazers have been one of the worst defenses statistically, to start the season. They've just not been great. They've not really got the personnel. I like Covington, but I do think he's massively overrated.
You think Covington's massively overrated?
On him. I think he's all right, but whenever a team acquires Covington, everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to be like contenders. They're going to be incredible." And I think he's just all right. That's probably another conversation to have later on. But I just think it shows that. What's weird is off the back of a 62-point performance, Steph is usually quite a selfless player, which is mad for someone of his shooting talent. Mm-hmm. And he kind of has to be because he's going to get guarded with more intensity than probably most players around the league because teams don't want him to shoot. And so that's probably why his usage has been so down. I think he's like 87th in usage rate, which for a team like the Warriors who's got hardly any good players, that needs to be massively higher. So I think he's just got to be more selfish and hope that teams are going to play him like the Blazers did.
Well, he might be 87th overall in usage rate, but he's in the 93rd percentile. So he's like in the top 7% of guys getting touches. And so absolutely, he needs as many touches as he can get. But what I think the difference is here is that I genuinely think that the return of Draymond has been instrumental in this being allowed to happen because now you've got a second playmaker on the team. Your first game back again, he only put 0 points first game back and only played 17 minutes. I think he upped that to 27 last night. So he's still working his way back in, but 8 assists and just a different mentality and a different leader on the floor. I think I said last week, I wanted to see them together before I could assess this team. And yes, that's a small sample size, but if Draymond puts up 1 point, it doesn't matter to me if he's doing everything else the way he does it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we probably do need to address, I know I kind of brushed off the Covington comment. We are getting some stick for it in the chat as well.
Hold on. We're not.
I am.
I
stand by it.
I go back and check his stats defending Anthony Davis just a few days before and then tell me he's overrated. I just think his skill set is more suitable for defending from basically the bigger players. His defensive flexibility comes from being able to guard bigger than he is versus smaller than he is, but he's still a fantastic on the ball defender. I can't believe you slandered him.
I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just think he's he's overrated. I think he's all right. I think he's this might get me into trouble. But say someone like Jeremy Grant, I think he's like that level. Whereas Jeremy Grant's probably slightly better offensively and not as good defensively, but he's that kind of caliber player where if he's your main guy, you're going to be as good as the Pistons are, which is crap. But then if he's like your fourth or fifth best player, then you might be okay. But I mean, for someone who's meant to be so good defensively, how come Portland are doing? I know that's an unfair question, but Portland are one of the worst defenses at the moment. So
they have been historically for years. Rocco's going to save it and turn them around, I'm sure. But Jeremy Grant, another one of my don't start attacking these two-way wing players who aren't quite offensive gods. Anyway, we've randomly gone down a Rocco hole. So the game last night, one of the things going into the game was that the Warriors, worst offense in the league, second worst defense. They rely heavily on pace, which is, they lead the league in pace. That's usually the sign that this is a bad team. And so could this be a case that they just happen to hit it right? Because they're averaging like 107.9 possessions per 48 minutes per game, basically. Last night's game was almost on the money at 107.2. So are we sure this wasn't just he got hot? This isn't a turnaround for the season?
I don't know. I mean, they started terribly, didn't they? Now they're at 500, like 3-3. I still think it's going to be a struggle for them to make the playoffs, for them to keep this consistent, just with it purely being Steph. I just think, Oubre, his shooting can't stay this bad forever. Like, he was an all right 3-point shooter last year, so things have got to improve. Even in the preseason, he was doing okay. And then you've got people like Wiggins, who I'm writing Wiggins off. I don't think if he improves, then like fair play, but I can't see it happening. He just looks terrible. Draymond coming back on the court is good because it just takes the minutes off the players that like would be in his place who are complete nobodies. So I kind of trust Steve Kerr to do more with some of these players and get them in the right positions. People like Eric Pascal, they need to get him the ball a bit more because that's bad enough, isn't it? When he's one of your better offensive players that you need to trust a bit more, that kind of sums it up for your roster. But I think they're going to be on the fringe of a play-in, and I kind of stick with that pick that I had at the start of the season.
Well, we're probably going to get into them again shortly, I think. Steph, phenomenal player, legacy intact. What do you want to see from him for the rest of the season? Rather than what do you want to see from him, what do you think he's capable of doing?
I think if he averaged 30, that would be good for him. That would put him in contention for an MVP caliber. Like looking historically, that would be MVP caliber numbers. If you could get like 8 assists, 30 points, that would be like incredible. So I think he would take that. I think the Warriors would take that. Whether that would be enough like is a question with having the rest of the team. But personally for Steph, I think 30 and 8 assists would be all right.
Yeah, I'm sort of 32 and 7 were the numbers I had, so almost identical. I was like, that's what I want from him, with 4 or 5 rebounds. Get into the line at a career high rate. I think he's averaging 8 free throws a game rather than just under 5. So keep doing that. Although my worry is if he keeps getting in the paint and getting hit, then his fragility will resurface. Hopefully it won't. Fingers crossed he has a healthy season. Fingers crossed everyone does. Let's get on to some surprising team predictions. So we're going to go through some teams so far that have surprised us that we think will be certain tiers by the end of the season. So we're going to start off with a surprise contender. So this is someone who at the start of the season you didn't think would be a contender, but now you think they could be a contender for the NBA Finals. Now, these are probably going to be hot takes because we're 6 games deep?
Yeah.
And these are surprises. So if you say the Lakers, I will virtually slap you.
I want to apologize for this because these tiers were my idea for this episode. And for the contenders, my answer is nobody.
Because there's no surprise contender.
I think, looking at it, the LA teams are the ones that are looking probably the best, which isn't a surprise. Philly, I still don't want to call them a contender just because it's Philly and what they did to both of us last year when we predicted them for the finals. I'm not ready to do that.
That's why they're my surprise contender.
I think I want to go with the Suns, but I'm still not confident that they could be finals. I think they're just decent playoffs, which is probably the next tier down. So you take it with the Sixers and give us your take on that.
So the two I'm going with, I'm literally going because they've surprised me so much and they've stepped out this way. My surprise contenders, you've named them both, are Philly and Phoenix. Now, I don't necessarily think they'll be there at the end of the season, but based on what we've seen so far, both teams have the makeup to go the distance. I don't think they will do it, but from what we've seen so far, it's been beyond impressive. If we look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they have just dominated. What they 5-1 at the minute, and they're in terms of their differentials, they're winning games by an average of 0.7, which is top 5. They're just decimating teams on both sides of the floor. I don't even know how to just describe it. Their offense is flowing now that they've got Seth Curry and other people capable of spreading the floor. We're sort of starting to see what Simmons could be. I say could be. We're starting to see what Simmons was 2 years ago. Obviously, they've had players in and out already. They've just had a player of the week who, as you said at the start, isn't their best player. That's what's scary, is that their third best player has won player of the week honors. The defense is coming along there. It's built on defense. It just feels to me like this team has the right tools to go far this year. And what scares me is, as you said before, last season I had this team coming out the East, and they just completely pooped the bed. Absolutely, just terrible last season. A lot of it was roster construction. I'm not convinced it's fixed now, but it's certainly a lot better than it was. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely fair. They've been one of the best teams so far. I think the question you've got to ask is, when it comes down to playoff time and they start narrowing the rotation, who makes that? And there's been so much talk about, like the fit of this team is so much better than last year. Now they got rid of Horford and brought shooters in. The fit is better. I'm not sure the quality of those players is any better. And I think that it kind of comes down more so, like we saw last playoffs, it depends on what kind of Embiid you're going to get, because he's still the number one guy, more so than Simmons and Harris. And he just looked disengaged in the playoffs last year. He doesn't look like the 100% like Embiid that is going to be peak and could tear it up consistently. I make the comparison all the time to Paul Pogba. Apologies, Mike, for bringing up a football reference, but someone that is like has the capabilities of being amazing, but just too often doesn't look engaged, doesn't look like he wants it. And so I think more than anything else on that team, his desire to be the best will define their success.
Yeah, no, I get that. I even vaguely understood a Paul Pogba reference, but that's only because I think you've mentioned him about 6 times over the past 2 years.
Yeah, every time Embiid comes up.
I mean, this is the second best defense in the league, and for me, that is a massive bonus. And again, only 6 games, so it could change, but to build your success on your defense is key for me, because that's something you can deliver night in, night out. You can have off shooting nights. You can have, a mediocre offense. If the defense is there, you will win games. And then all you need is for the offense to click, and you will start just lighting teams up. So this is a defensively driven team. I like that. So you had none. I've gone. That was Philly in my first one. Phoenix. Then I'm going. And it's similar. It's similar. This is the 7th best offense so far. 3rd best defense. This is a completely different Phoenix team to what we've seen, barring those 8 games in the bubble, to what we've seen in recent years. A large part of that credit has to go to Chris Paul and the leadership style he's brought in, which might rub people the wrong way, but where has he gone to? And they've lost. They lost. The Clippers lost. Obviously, the Clippers lost in the playoffs year upon year, and that was a disappointment. But it's still Chris Paul who's on one leg hitting that runner to beat the Spurs. It's still Chris Paul who's dragging an OKC team no one picked to make the playoffs into the playoffs. What are your thoughts on the Suns thus far?
They're just like a lot deeper than people give them credit for. Obviously, Chris Paul's getting all the accolades because he's the one that's gone in and changed the fortunes a bit. But even like the guy that's done it for me is Mikal Bridges. Like some of the clips of him and his points per game have gone up. His role has gone up. He's becoming what Robert Covington should be.
What's this road slander?
But he's that mold, right? He's the 3-and-D guy that you need, who's not going to be your best player, but will play a massive role in guarding the other team's best players and like being there to throw the outlet to and to score the three when you drive into the basket. So him, as well as Chris Paul, are contributing to their success. And then obviously you've got Devin Booker doing his thing, and Ayton's still getting better defensively, which has been key for them as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Obviously, on paper, Booker is the absolute, the weapon on this team. I just like the way that Chris Paul, old school point guard, distributing the ball. This 13.4 points per game must be his lowest of his career or close to, but 8.3 assists is still pretty decent. It's excellent, to be honest. Mikal Bridges is a good shout. A very good shout. What I like is there's a good spread of points. If you look at their roster, there's 8 or 9 players averaging double digits. I like that there's a good spread. And as I said before, again, same as Philly, this is a good defense right now, 3rd in the league, and a top 10 offense. So if that offense continues to hold at the same level, this could be a team that goes relatively far into whenever the playoffs will be. What we're talking now, July time?
Yes.
It's so confusing. Okay, so let's flip back to the next ones there. So you didn't have any surprise contenders. Thanks for setting me up for this one, because this was your idea.
Setting you up to fail.
A playoff lock, a team that's surprising you as a lock for the playoffs.
Hopefully making it up for it with this one. I'm ready to lock it in after last week overreacting to it. This week I'm ready to confirm that the Cleveland Cavaliers are making the playoffs in the East. I think 4-2. What's funny is what convinced me of this was watching them lose to Indiana. I just thought they're really intense. They really want it. They've actually got more players that are decent than I gave them credit for in my head. So it's not just the Sexland thing is the one that's gone big over the past few days with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland in the backcourt actually looking fairly decent. But Drummond is looking like a monster. And you've got Larry Nance who's played decent on the wing, and you've got Isaac Okoro who's come in and done a job defensively. I just think that 7-8 in the East is open for grabs, and I think if they can keep anything close to this up, then I think I could see him getting into the playoffs.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. I disagree that the Cavs will be there. Something inside me says the wheels are going to fall off. I just feel that way. I don't think they have the right makeup of a team to go the distance at all. My surprise.
And so before you go for yours, Kevin Love's coming back as well. I think he played the first 2 games and then he's out for 3 weeks. So they've still got him to come and add to the team as well.
True. That's points on the board and a few rebounds, but I don't think he's the Kevin Love of old. I think he's still a defensive liability. I think he's just not quick enough to be switchable with the way that a lot of teams play now. My Eastern Conference choice was the Hawks. I tipped them preseason to make the playoffs, but I was really unsure of how this unit would merge and sort of meld together. But the offense is cooking right now, but what scares me is that the defense is sort of mediocre. So if that offense cools off at any point, we can see them hurtle straight back down the rankings. Absolute spread of offensive talent. Just praying they can hold it together. Like Trae Young's been phenomenal so far. Shout out to Matt Wellington, our founder, who did you see his message in Slack earlier? He wanted us to mention how Vince Carter must have influenced Trae Young during his time in Atlanta, because the amount of times Trae's going to the line is like early New Jersey Nets Vince Carter, which is a really obscure reach, but one nevertheless that we will mention on the pod. Okay, so who have you got for your Western team as a lock for the playoffs?
Oh, we're doing West as well. I'm going to say Pelicans for the West.
Okay.
I'm not as confident as I was for the Cavs, but I think that's more a testament to the caliber of the teams in the West than it is how good the Cavs are. I just think the Pelicans have looked really good early. Zion's looked a lot better than I thought he would do. And so is Brandon Ingram. So they seem to have their two guys that they're going to run with. The fit between Steven Adams and Zion and the rest of the team hasn't been as bad as I expected. I thought that was going to kind of be a congested lane and it was going to muck the system up. But understand Van Gundy, they look decent. The defense is drastically improved. So I think if they can keep this up as well, then they'll probably end up in like the play-in range. But I think that'll be good enough for them, and they'd take that if you asked them now.
Yeah, I think they absolutely would take it. Are you confident? You're saying obviously Zion's impressed you. Are you confident he's the best player on that team?
I think I would say this at the moment. Ingram is probably their best player, with Zion very closely behind. I think the question is when it comes down to it, and you've got a one more play with 20 seconds on the shot, are you going to run it for Zion, or are you going to run it for Ingram? And I'm not sure how I'd answer that question at the moment. It probably depends on who you're playing. But Ingram maybe edges it for me at the moment.
I'm running a play for Ingram every time.
Mm-hmm.
So 90% of the shots I see Zion make are where he's barreled in and caught his own miss, phenomenal talent, absolutely. And I'm not taking anything away from him. I just think there's a side of his game that we need to see develop more. He's still an absolute phenom, an athletic freak, and just some of the rebounds he gets, he just has no right to be in there. I remember, and this is going to show my age. I remember just before Kenyon Martin got drafted, Slam ran a feature of him when he was playing for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati, whatever their team nickname is. But there was like in this story, it really stuck with me. It was like he reckoned he was so quick he could jump twice before the other player had jumped once and landed.
Yeah,
and that might sound well. Okay, obviously you get very high off the ground. No, this Kenyon Martin could get up, and this is what we're seeing from Zion too. The speed at which he gets up, just misses the first shot, but then he's down and straight. But he's just pogo stick. It's unbelievable. My pick, I'm going to take the Warriors.
Oh, as a lock, a playoff lock. That's big.
As a playoff lock. Wow. I'm taking all my stock and putting it in the tandem of Draymond Green and Steph Curry.
One big game from Steph, and then that's it.
No, it's not. It's not the big game from Steph. It's the Draymond factor. It's literally they have, like I said at the start, they had the worst offense, second worst defense, or the other way around. I think that'll change now. I think defensively they still won't be great. James Wiseman is, he's a rookie. He's a rookie big man. He's going to struggle defensively, but he's shown promise on the offensive end. And the Warriors have a knack of making big men better. And this is, they take. I've beaten this point to death many times, so I won't go over it again. But they take guys without high ceilings and make them look fantastic. So now they've got a guy with a high ceiling, a lottery pick. He could go a long way. And then we look at the rest of the team. I think there's teething issues, but I'm comfortable that things will improve on that end as well. So yeah, I'm going to take the Warriors as my Western Conference lock.
Yeah,
so,
I think a lot of that rides on Wiseman, as you said. He's someone who played 3 college games at Memphis, and that was it. Like he got booted out after that, and then he's had no preseason really, in terms of summer league or anything like you would usually have. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And so he's coming in completely fresh off not having any experience playing basketball for a long time. And he's thrown into it. Looks all right in his first couple of games, but he's now starting to slump a bit. But, I mean, if you want to play along someone who's going to improve you, Draymond Green shouting at you, telling you where to be on the defensive end, the only way is up for him, you would think. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm comfortable locking them in for the playoffs. And this will come back to bite me in the ass in about a month's time, I'm sure. Okay, so next one, surprise play-in team. So a team that either because you expect them to be a lock for the playoffs and you see them dropping into that 7 to 10 spot, or a team that you didn't expect to even be in there who are challenging for it. Who have you got from the East?
I think I've got 2, and they're both in the West. My first one is Dallas, and I've been surprised at how bad Dallas have looked so far, mainly because it's been off the back of Luka's poor shooting. And they're just not looking as dominant as I thought they would. I think a lot of people were probably overrating them, thinking they were going to be top 2 or 3 seed, which, I mean, they could still do it technically, but they don't look as as strong as they have been built up to be. So if Luka can pull it back, again, we could be sitting here in a week's time saying, oh, Dallas look like championship contenders, blah, blah, blah. My other team is Sacramento, just because I think they've looked really good. Tyrese Halliburton has been getting rave reviews all over NBA Twitter and on a million podcasts over the past week because he was a guy coming in. Yeah, we knew coming in he was going to be someone who could contribute straight away. But I don't think anyone anticipated this, 5 or 6 games in, playing massive minutes, filling the gap that they've had from losing Bogdan Bogdanovic. They just look like a really good unit. And they pulled out some games as well, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, on the Dallas point, Porzingis as well is back in practice, so there's a chance that he's back on the court this month. That's obviously a huge boost to them, and fingers crossed he can stay on the court, which historically he's not been able to. So that doesn't reassure me at all. But they have had a rough start to the season. I have faith in Luka. Faith in Luka. He's been so fantastic thus far. He's going to be getting a lot more defensive schemes designed exactly to stop him. He has got some decent players around. I do like the Josh Richardson pickup still, but obviously guys who really spread the floor like Seth Curry are a loss offensively, but they're also a negative on defense quite often. The team I've picked are the New York Knicks.
Oh, I literally wrote that. Let me just tell you this. What? My notes for this section were Pelicans, blah, 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 Sacramento, Dallas, in capital letters, not the Knicks.
Why not the Knicks? Why not the Knicks? Why not the Knicks?
Have you seen their roster? Can you tell me 10 players on their roster? I mean, 10's probably extreme.
No, I can't. I can't tell you 10 players on their roster because it's an ensemble of mismatches.
Tell me why the Knicks.
Tell me why the Knicks. 27th ranked offense. That's terrible, yeah? Absolutely terrible. The 4th ranked defense. What have I been saying this whole pod? That music's brilliant, Kirk. This whole pod. Build on the defense. You've got Tibbs getting them playing hard. If the offense clicks, it only needs to lift them to the 10 spot.
Oh, my word.
I can't believe I make one positive reference.
Okay, next.
5 years.
This reminds me, right, of 5 weeks ago. I remember this conversation because I think about it weekly. When you asked the question, who are you most looking forward to as like a surprise player that's going to do well this year? And you said Damian Jones. I feel like it's one of them where, I mean, the Knicks have exceeded expectations so far. Julius Randle's playing like MVP level basketball, which probably sums up their limitations. I love some of their players individually, like Frank Ntilikina, Obi Toppin, players like that, Kevin Knox, but they're not a playoff team ever for me. Even on the fringe, I think they're going to struggle to get. I had them as the worst team. I think a few of us did. The worst team in the NBA to start the season off. So I'd still see them around that area when it comes to the end.
I don't think they are good, but I also don't think you necessarily need to be good to be a bubble. To be a play-in team. I just think I've always said it. Tibbs, for all the crap that gets thrown at him about knocking, running players too hard, running them into the ground. Yes, he has got issues he's been working on. He makes teams overachieve. He gets the best out of these guys. And there are teams in there that should be above them and aren't. But there are teams in there that I think will probably be worse than them come the end of the season.
Well, let's do it then. So if we take out the top 6 that everyone kind of writes in for the East, do you think the Knicks are better than the Hawks you've already mentioned?
No, long way off the Hawks. I'm locking the Hawks in for the playoffs.
Okay, so let's go for the Cavs. My Cavs.
I think they could. I think potentially by the end of the season they'll be above the Cavs.
What are we talking about here? The Hornets.
Yeah, I think they can be better than the Hornets.
They're probably close. The Wizards. I know they've started badly.
It's tough. The Wizards is tough because you've got 2 one elite player and another fading star. That's a really harsh way of describing Russell Westbrook, but a guy who's past his peak but is still a phenomenal talent.
And then you've got, I mean, the Magic as well. They're always on the fringe, and I think the Magic are miles better than him. I just think you've definitely got, probably got at least 10 teams in the East that are better than the Knicks.
Okay, that's fine. I think the Pistons. I think the Pistons will probably be worse by the end of the year.
I might give you the Pistons, but even that isn't set in stone.
So I've got them from 15th into 12th. I've only got to get up 2 more spots, and I'm in the play-in.
I'm not having it. The gulf is too big. I'm not allowing you to have this opinion.
Okay, right. Let's move on from the Knicks then. Did you do both of yours? You did Mavs and Sacramento, didn't you?
Yeah. Sacramento.
Yeah. My next pick is the Thunder. I think could out.
Oh my word!
No!
What have you been smoking before this?
What? No. This is a surprise team. You set This is your segment. Surprise. The Knicks could be
a surprise, and then there's just completely wrong.
No, why? Come on, talk me out of this. Again, offensively, terrible. Yeah. This defensively, 12th.
Oh, they're probably the only team coming into the season that I would say would deliberately trying to be the worst team in the league. And I know they've looked all right so far, but if anyone's going to try and tank, it's going to be them because they've got a million picks. They're clearly in rebuild mode. The players that they've got, Lou Dort's averaging like 20 points into something similar to that. I just think that if they'll probably be annoyed with themselves if they get into the play-in race, because I just think that there's so much in for what's going to be a great draft coming up, and they've got no business messing in the West. I think they might have taken a couple of games early on because of the genius of Shea and Darius Baisley so far, but I mean it's desperate again, like the Knicks, when you're relying on people like Lou Dort, Baisley, and Pokusevski, who's looking terrible as we expected.
Okay, let's move on then to the next one.
Hold on. You never actually told us why. I'm not letting you get away with this.
No, I did. I said based on defense. All they need is the offense to click just a little bit. They've got vets like Al Horford there. The defense is 12th in the league. That's not bad. That's playoff defense essentially. I'm hanging my hat tonight on defense is what matters consistently. Let's move on to a surprise team that should tank.
Okay. This one, again, I've got 2. My first one is the Grizzlies, just because they look decent, like coming off the back of last year. People thought they were going to be good this year. Ja Morant taking another leap, which it looked like he was taking another leap, but they were still losing games, and now he's out for 3 to 5 weeks. Which could be 15 to 20 games. So, and we've already said the West is tricky.
Killing my fantasy team.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to really struggle to be competitive and to make it into the playoffs. So maybe it's better for them. To be fair, I think it's one of them teams that would never intentionally tank and get rid of players and lose games and that kind of thing. But I think they would play it out, hope that the young guys play okay and develop, but not be too upset if they miss out.
No, I think that's fair, but again, you sort of nailed it there. They didn't tank to get Ja Morant. It was just the natural end of the previous era. I've gone with the Pistons. They had the hard fought game where they lost on a single shot to your Celtics last night. Mm-hmm. Blake got cooked. Wow. And then blocked at the other end. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I just think this is a team that's poorly constructed. It needs to be blown up. Trades need to be made. Get off some contracts. Start afresh. I don't understand the fascination with bigs at all. So yeah, I would quite happily put the Pistons down as a team that should tank. And then my second surprise team that should tank. I hope Hugh's not in the channel. The San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, good. There we go then. And anyone
For
who's
the
just
first
like,
time tonight, I agree.
yeah. So the last time the Spurs tanked, there's a lot of reasons why I picked this, but this is just the poetic reason. The last time the Spurs tanked, they ended up with Tim Duncan. It's 21. The year's 21. It's written by the basketball gods in the stars above. If the Spurs tank, they will end up with some kind of franchise-changing talent. But you agree they should tank, so that's a positive we've managed to agree on. Not that I was disagreeing with your other picks, by the way. I just want to be clear. Apart from Roko, most of what you've said has been logical tonight, whereas some of what I've said has been a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, maybe just a bit. But that's what I mean. We don't want boring chat, do we? That's what we're here for. I think with who did you just say? I've completely forgot.
Spurs.
The Spurs, yeah, they've been one of the most boring teams over the past few years, mainly because they've just kind of said we're not going to tank, we're going to play and do our best with what we've got, and what they've had has been rubbish, which has kind of harmed any excitement for the future because they've not got anyone that's amazing that's come in. Like Lonnie Walker's the one everyone's getting excited about, who's taken kind of years to get to where he is now, and is looking all right, to be fair. But you compare their roster to the other teams around the league, and it's not looking anymore like Popovich can drag these teams to the finals anymore. I mean, not that he dragged the old teams.
Just to clarify, is that a knock on Popovich?
No.
Or is he suggesting that even he can't drag this talent?
It's not a knock on him. I think before he got a lot of credit for overachieving with players, but those players were actually great. Whereas now, if he got anywhere close to locking in a playoff seed with DeJounte Murray and Lonnie Walker and Devin Vassell and all those kind of guys, it would be one of the greatest achievements for him. But yeah, they need to tank. They need some excitement. They're not going to do any good on the fringes of a play-in again for me.
No, I'm pretty much in agreement with you there. So yeah, well, of course I was. It was my pick in the first place. But let's move on from surprise picks to our weekly moment of. I say weekly. We've had several moments of nonsense so far on the show, but it is our weekly segment of nothing but Knicks silly nonsense. So everyone knows what a crucial role Dennis Rodman played in the U.S. foreign diplomacy with North Korea. If you haven't watched Dennis Rodman's, what is it? There's a documentary on it, and it's Big Bang in Pyongyang or something like that. It's a documentary about how he goes over there and plays a game.
You've got to be careful if you search for that and that's not the title. You're going to get some of the things coming up.
I don't know what I've just sent you to Google. We'll try and find it out and tweet it later. But there is definitely a Dennis Rodman documentary on Prime about his time in North Korea. But anyway, so next question is: I can't help but think that after the UK has been through such a prolonged and painful negotiation process with the EU. Thanks, Nick, for bringing that up again. That we could benefit from such expertise. If you had to appoint an NBA personality from past or present to represent the UK in foreign affairs, who would you choose and why?
Oh, this reminded me of the conversation we had a while back when we were talking about who our presidential candidates would be. I think it was when Mo was on. Pop is the easy answer, because he's just someone who isn't going to take any messing you would back to go into these negotiations. My slightly funnier one, but with no real justification, is Robin Lopez or one of the Lopez brothers, just because I think they are funny, light-hearted guys, but they look really intimidating. So to send those guys in, I would imagine they would come out with what they went in for.
Yeah, and plus there'd be massive Europhiles because they're both massive Disney fans, and Paris must be a big draw for them. I went with, second time I'm going to reference Knicks on a podcast in a positive light. I went with former New York Knick and US Senator Bill Bradley, because he's obviously a career politician after his NBA career. He was actually a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. So he came over to the UK, studied in the UK, learnt about our custom and cultures, if we have any, and whilst also playing for Olimpia Milano in Italy. So he used to fly over there weekly. So this is a guy who's used to travelling, politics, understands Europe, understands the UK. So that would be my sensible pick. But I think prime Charles Barkley would be fantastic. Yeah. His quotes about Angola at the '92 Dream Team shows just how nuanced his diplomatic prowess is. I think I've. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, we've had a few. Someone else suggested Charles Barkley, Richard Fang, Rich Baz, Ron Artest, Nikola Jokic has come in. Boban, lots of Euros being thrown around, which makes sense. Definitely not Mookie Blaylock. Rich Barrett, definitely not Mookie Blaylock. I think he served a not insignificant sentence for accidental death by driving or something like that. Yeah. Also, Mookie's not his real name. Anyway, let's go down another rabbit. It is that time. 8 minutes left. Talking on D. So this is our discourse on Discord. If you're not in the Discord community and server, please come join us. It's discord.me/doubleclutch. Lots of new season chat going on all the time. Lots of new people jumping in actually, and we got a nice selfie from the newest member the other day, a massive Raptors fan. His name escapes me, but I'll get to it in a minute. I apologise. We've also had Fantasy League going on. Lots of Fantasy League stuff going on. That's probably our most active channel at the minute. It's just mainly because a few people in particular are just firing in it constantly. But the Fantasy League recap. So there are 7 teams in our 20-team league still with a winning record. They're Chips and Kyrie Source, which is Rich Barrett, London Lupolonics, which is Brian Boucher, Team Bean, which is Ben Bean, Wade County, which is Tom Lamming, Kent Shell Shockers, which is, I believe, our long-time follower, Flying Tortoise, Nottingham Gam, which is Rich Fang, and Raging Bowl, which is you.
Yes. It was a close one this week, but we pulled it out last night.
Skin of your teeth. Yeah. But it's good. It seems like everyone's having a lot of fun with it, so it's all good.
It did make me laugh in the chat, which has just been all trade talk due to Rich Fang, and I know you picked it out earlier, Mike, that he's been trying to pull these trades all week for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and he makes the trade and then comes out and says, "I'm done. That's me done for trading." And then like half a day later, he comes out and he's like, "Right, who wants this guy? Who wants this guy?" So, I mean, that's been the gist of it. I've sent him like a million different trade offers, all to be rejected. So I'm also done.
Yeah, I think he might have done some damage to his negotiating ability when he said, "I can sell cat crap to a cat," which if I was a receiving GM would be very wary about what he's trying to sell me. Okay, so let's go to Discord listener questions. Well, not just Discord. We've had a few on Twitter as well. We're going to go through about 5 of them, I think. First one from Richard Fang, number 8. It's not a trade request, but after watching The Last Dance for the second time, how many times have you watched The Last Dance now? You must have watched it at least once.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing through when it was on. I haven't watched any since, but
I think I'm on about 3rd or 4th watch.
Really?
And bought the DVD box set.
I saw that actually. Yeah, that looked pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've smashed the bonus interviews and stuff as well. I think there's like 4 hours of extra stuff. Nice. But after watching The Last Dance for the second time, in your opinions, how do you think players like Reggie Miller, Steve Kerr, Craig Elo, Tony Kukoc, wow, I cannot talk today, and especially Mark Price would fare in modern era basketball with more threes being scored, etc.? And is there any other notable players in the past you think would excel in the modern style of basketball? Anyone? I mean, how do you think those guys would fare? To me, I'll let you go first. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean, amazingly, that their style is pure threes that would fit the game now, especially a lot of their like height and physique. When it was a physical league as it was back then, is not going to be as effective as it probably would be now, and they'll get a lot more protection from the referees with the way the game is played now. You're probably better in terms of other players because I only came into the NBA more recently. And wasn't watching it kind of back then, so I don't know if you've got anyone else that you think would be effective.
Yeah. I've got a couple. Reggie Miller. I'm just going to go back through his quickly. Reggie Miller would be phenomenal in this league, with less contact, with his aggressive style of play and his ability to shoot 3. I'm not convinced Steve Kerr would be great in this league. I get that he's a phenomenal 3-point shooter. He wasn't quick. He wasn't a great ball handler. By his own admittance, he would have been exposed on defense. He wasn't particularly tall and wasn't particularly athletic. So I think his role would probably have been similar. But who knows? Different training methods might have. It's very difficult to transplant talent, etc., because he might have been had different training methods and things like that. Craig Elo, I think, would have been more appreciated in this era if he didn't have to. I think he's massively underrated because he's been the victim of multiple Jordan just embarrassing moments. And he was actually a really good defender that came in. I think he was like a second or third round pick and worked his way up from just basically not being in the league. Kukoc would have been phenomenal in this era. Great ball handler, great passer. Would have been a point forward, not to the not saying he'd be like Giannis or LeBron or anyone like that, but I reckon he'd have been an all-star point forward. Mark Price, I love Mark Price. He legit is slept on. He should be thought of so much more highly. Would have lit it up because although he was small in stature, he could get to the cup and he could shoot from anywhere. And phenomenal ball handler, phenomenal passer. I threw in some bigs because that sort of was guard heavy. Sam Perkins, I thought would have been particularly good in terms of spreading the floor. The big smooth played for the Pacers and the Sonics, and another guy who played for the Pacers and the Sonics, Euro Detlef Schrempf. Both solid guys, both sort of pioneers of big men shooting the ball, really. So they would be two that I would pick. Question 2 from Jonah. Who's the worst locker room guy? Like, if you could bring in one player to sabotage a team that you didn't want to win, who would you send in to ruin the team chemistry? I'll let you start because I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you know where I'm going to end. I'm going to start with a slightly alternative one. James Harden, I think, is up there because if he goes to the wrong team, like he's obviously given out his top trade destinations where he'd want to go. I think, obviously, Houston have got they don't have to send him to one of those preferred teams for him. So if he went to somewhere where he doesn't really want to go, you could see him carrying on with his antics, like not wanting to play, going to these strip clubs, doing stuff like that, not following the rules. Josh did say before the podcast that he wanted to throw out there the take that he's going to end up at Orlando, which is one of those teams that obviously has got a lot to trade and could throw at Houston to get Harden. And I don't imagine he'd want to go and play down there. So that could be somewhere where he's not great. To bring it back to the question, though, my ultimate bad chemistry guy is obviously Kyrie. Having lived through that experience, he's just, I don't say nutter, but he's a nutter. So how about you, Mark?
Are you confident then that Kyrie isn't just the media construct on him? I know he's not conventionally normal in terms of what he says and does, but.
Not conventionally normal.
But look at the way he was greeted by the other Celtics players. That didn't really strike me as someone who'd created bad chemistry.
I mean, they were that happy because he wasn't on the team anymore. You wouldn't have seen that. He was in green.
Fair enough. I think guys like, the easiest obvious ones for me are guys like Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith, who basically, unless you have someone with LeBron's powerful just ability to control a locker room environment, someone who's got a really strong leadership like that, then they cause all kinds of havoc. We saw like the way the Spurs were run, people like Steven Jackson who caused issues around the rest of the league. Whilst he was with the Pacers, things like that, he was settled into a role there. For me, it's outside of those two, I'd worry about people like Gilbert Arenas. Anyone who brings a gun into a locker room, waves it around, that's not great. That's not good for team chemistry. Next question from Matt Hardy, UK Nets fans. Why don't people make more of a big deal out of Davis Bertans and Gerald Green's lack of fingers?
So I had to Google this because I've heard a bit about Gerald Green before, but with Bertans, I thought he was going down the route of like he shoots it strange, so he doesn't release off one of his fingers. And then I Googled it, and on images, he's literally got half a ring finger on his shooting hand. Yeah,
he put the picture in the Discord. Did you not see the picture?
No, I didn't see that. Sorry, but unbelievable for one of the best shooters in the league to like have half a finger on your shooting hand. That's just unbelievable. So the fact that I didn't know about it, not that I need to know all these things, but kind of shows that it's not in like the main NBA sphere of like what people are chatting about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard it mentioned on play-by-play calls earlier in their career. Like I know Gerald Green lost his dunking on a homemade hoop in the house, which sounds horrific. I wonder whether Bertans actually helps him, because if you follow shot form, and I'm sat here flicking my wrist on my weird ass hands, the last finger to fall if you were releasing the ball would be my ring finger. So I wonder whether, because that's not central on the ball, it puts a slight little bit of spin on it. Maybe the fact it doesn't have that spin on it is why he's one of the best shooters in the league. Who knows? I just think it's not a big deal really.
I guess it's how you practice, and if you're used to not having it, then fair play. You're probably going to be all right.
They're NBA players. They're there for a reason. Finally, from on Twitter, the Post Up Podcast. What advice can you give to new podcasts trying to start up? I know you started up a podcast fairly recently. So have you got any advice for the Post Up Podcast?
Yeah, so we started ours back in March, and it was probably what's more informative was the conversation I had with Chris Vernon on this podcast, where he gets asked all the time about people that are up and coming and want to get going with this kind of thing. And I agree with him in that you've got to find your niche. Although he said your niche, which gets me every time.
I hate that. Americans saying French words incorrectly.
Yeah.
Like click.
Oh yeah, can't be doing with that. But yeah, find your niche, because there's so many podcasts these days. It's that thing in it of 2020, like, I'm going to start a podcast, which I can take the mick out of, but I also did. And I think if you're talking about something that everyone else is talking about, you're going to struggle to get anyone paying attention or anyone wanting to tune into you unless you're drastically better than everybody else, which if you're just starting out, you're going to struggle to be. So find something that not everyone else is researching about and talking about. But also, I would say the way that you talk is just as important as what you're saying, because you can be saying stuff that's like very factually correct and you can do all your research. But for me, the podcasts that I listen to the most and enjoy the most are the ones that are energetic and funny, and you feel like you know the people that are on it, even though you've never met them before. So definitely the way that you come across as well as what you're saying is super important.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think audio quality is a big one for me. So clean up the mic feeds, learn how to do it. I was very daunted by the prospect of doing any sort of editing, and Matt does a lot of our editing, but there are tricks that you can use to make your feed sound infinitely better. Do something that you love. Talk about something you talk about anyway. Like if I wasn't talking to you right now, I'd be talking to just texting someone. Probably winding up an old schoolmate who's like, are you seriously still talking about this crap 25 years
you
later?
still think the Knicks are going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, and just basically just keep doing it. I mean, Double Clutch has been in existence since 2012. I've been here since 2015, and it's just keep doing it. You only get better by keeping doing it. That's all I can say on that one. Okay. So that's all the listeners' questions. Let's quickly go to Game of the Week. We've run over by 5 minutes. Have you got Game of the Week quickly? Don't really have to go into much detail.
Yeah, so Celtics Raptors tonight, or Celtics Heat on Wednesday, just because they were the two conference semi-finals and conference finals in the East last year. So it'd be nice to see a replay of them, see who comes out on top. Raptors need a win as well, so it'd be an interesting game.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad shout. I've gone with Nuggets at 76ers, 8 p.m. next Saturday, and that's going to be on Sky Sports Arena. So thank you to everyone for dropping in tonight. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you to Kirk for doing some kind of crazy magic on this stream. There's lots of animated characters dribbling balls. It looks like NBA Jam gone mad. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm gonna have to watch it back and try and figure out what all of it is. New follower on Discord, Josh and Raptor Yelts. Thanks for following. On Twitch, we've had Zubs the 1990, Zoglug, Miki B, wow, and Gavito 85. If that's Gavito off Twitter, then I know who that is. So shout out to you guys and welcome Gavito. The best members are Mike and Tom for not noticing that Kirk has been sitting on the back of the bus the whole time. Apparently, there's Kirk sat there, and oh my God, Kirk's waving at us. Can you see the back of the bus on the tiny little Skype screen that we've got? You see, there's a hand waving. It's Kirk.
No, I can't see that.
That is an Easter egg and a half. You need to look at there's a bus on the left.
I
That's
can.
incredible.
Yeah. Unreal. Unbelievable scenes.
That that is amazing. So on that note, we will close the show. Just before we do, NBA UK fans have started something this season. Well, this year, sorry. They are basically, I don't really understand this, as you can probably tell, but they've built individual Twitter lists for every NBA team to help the UK community connect with more fans of your specific team. If you want to be added to their teams list, then find the tweet on at NBA_UK fans. It's not hard to find. Reply to it with the name of the team. They'll stick you in the list. I'm assured that lists basically are a fun thing to do. I have no idea what they are or what they do.
You're really selling it here.
Yeah, no, honestly, go and do it if you want to connect with more fans of your team. There seems to be a huge sort of swell in community accounts coming through of team specific. It's great to see. So the more people that are enjoying the game and following the teams that they love, the better from my perspective. So on that note, thank you very much to everyone for listening. If you're not already following us, make sure you follow us on social media at Double Clutch UK. Make sure you are watching on Twitch with this amazing new funky court and Kirk in the back of a bus like he's some kind of naughty school kid. That is Twitch. That is twitch.tv/doubleclutchuk. And come join the Discord server, talk hoops all through the week with us. discord.me/doubleclutch. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Hey, baby, let me tell you something. I don't mean to brag, but I'm the greatest. I am the greatest.